Books, books. I like books. I'm gonna read them all. Hi readers, Chris here. Welcome to my channel where I review fantasy, Stephen King, all sorts of books. Today I am doing my February wrap up and my March TBR because yes, for me, March has basically just started because I've been on vacation in Costa Rica. Yes, and I thought it'd be really funny to film this video now that I'm back and it is snowing outside. So I did have some sunburn on my arm that has faded now, but hopefully you can see I've got a little bit of a tan going on. I'm sure that'll go away very, very, very soon. I wanted to film this video before I left for my vacation, but I just completely ran out of time. So I'm doing it now, better late than never, but February was actually a great reading month. I finished 7 books in February, and considering February was a short month and the fact that I was getting ready for this major trip, it was a bit crazy, but I still did really, really well. So now I'm going to rank all these books by order of my favorite, and luckily the bottom 2 were pretty easy to pick. So I'm going to start with my 7th favorite book of the month, or should I say my least favorite book of the month, and that is Rose Matter by Stephen King. They can't all be winners. If you've been following me for a while, you know I'm a huge Stephen King fan. He's written some of my favoriteest books of all time. This was not one of them. This was not one of them. I actually started this book back in January, like in the beginning of the year, and it took me that long to finish it. It took me 2 months to really get through it because it's just not a fun book to read. It's about a woman who is getting out of a relationship that she's been in for a long time that is physically, mentally, emotionally abusive, but very physically. And it's just really hard to read because unfortunately, not that happens to people in real life. So that part was really hard to read. Hearing about what happened to her, all her long-term, like the long-term effects physically on her body that she has now because of these years of abuse is just horrifying. That's one part. And then on the other side, her husband, the one that she's escaping from, Norman, I think his name is. Yeah, Norman. We actually get like parts of the book from his point of view, from his POV, and being inside the head of someone that is the abuser is also not really fun to read. Like, again, it's horrifying. I find this more horrifying than like The Stand, than It, because this is real life. Like, this is really what people do to each other, unfortunately. So it just made for not a fun reading experience. But looking past all that, like when I did finally get to the end and I was like, okay, you know, like she's going to get her revenge maybe on him and all this stuff. The end of the book takes a really weird turn, I'll get into it more when I do like a bit of a deep dive, but I did not like the ending of this book. I really didn't enjoy reading the book, and I didn't like the ending. So that is why Rose Matter is my least favorite book of the month and might be one of my least favorite Stephen King books of all time. My 6th favorite book of February is another one that makes me kind of sad, and that is Earthly Joys by Philippa Gregory. Philippa Gregory is another author who's like an all-time favorite of mine. I absolutely love The Other Boleyn Girl. I love all the books that she's written about like Tudor era England. I just love her stuff. This book, however, I did not love. This book basically follows one man's life. His name is John Transcant or something, and he is a gardener to a lord, and his lord passes away, and then he starts to work with this other lord, and it's really just about his life as a gardener and what it means to him to like serve all these powerful men in his life. So he comes to work for the Duke of Buckingham, who is like one of the king's favorite subjects, and so he gets a lot of perks through this relationship. But then he also gets like a firsthand view of what it really means to be a part of this royalty, like, I don't know how you explain it, but the way that it works, like the the disparity between the haves and the have-nots, and how much him and his family have to struggle while others are just given things. And in the beginning of the book, he is very much like, I believe in the Lord, I believe in my king, I believe it's my place to serve my king and do all these other things. But throughout the course of his life, he just sees so much that he really starts to question it. And the book is very long. It's over 500 pages, and it's very slow, and it's very boring. Like, not a lot happens. This book is a total, like, deep dive character exploration about this one man's life. If you like things like that, you might find this fascinating. I, however, do like my stories with a bit more drama, a bit more action, a bit more, I don't know, something. So it was pretty slow for me. And honestly, I will say that on the back of the book, it says that it makes an allusion. It alludes to the fact that this gardener kind of falls in love and has a bit of an affair with the Duke of Buckingham. And I was really looking forward to that point of the story. I'm like, what's going to make this straight-laced man, you know, who has a wife and has children, what's going to make him have an affair with another man? Like, I was really curious to see how that would come about. And I was very disappointed on how that came about. If that's something you're looking forward to, it's one scene. It happens very quickly. It's not that steamy or exciting, and then it never happens again. So it's kind of like, what was even the point of having that scene? I guess I know, like, it is a big moment in this character, like I said, in his life, and it does change things for him. But I don't know. I was looking for something more personally. I didn't get it. So there is a sequel to this book. I don't want to read it, but at this point, I've read almost everything Philippa Gregory has ever written, so I kind of feel like I have to. But maybe I'll read it like at the end of the year when I'm prepared for a more slower story. My fifth favorite book of February, this might be a surprise, and that's going to be Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Sorry about the glare. I think between the windows and the ring light, it's a little bit hard to see. But anyway, Once Upon a Broken Heart is not a sequel, but it's a subsequent series to Caraval. So Caraval was a trilogy about a young girl, magic circus, there's gods and fates and all this cool stuff. And this supposedly takes place in the same world, but with a different character. So we have Evangeline Fox is our character. She apparently has rose gold hair. She's in love with this boy in the beginning, but this boy is allegedly being forced to marry someone else. She wants to stop the wedding, so she makes a deal with this fate. His name is Jax, basically a god type character. But because of this, she gets turned to stone, and this sets off a whole series of events. And then she owes this debt to Jax, where he wants her to kiss three people. If it's starting to sound weird to you, that's how I felt about this entire book. This entire book is super weird. I don't know what I was expecting, really, but I wasn't expecting this. I kind of feel the same way about this book that I felt about Legendary. So if you read the Caraval series and you liked Legendary, you will probably like this book because it has a lot of the same characteristics. I personally felt like Legendary made no sense whatsoever. I thought the things that happened in it were super random. They didn't flow. They were just like, oh, the character does this and then this happens. And these things are not related at all. They're totally random, totally different. Oh, and guess what? There's vampires in this story. Yes, vampires. There's no vampires in Caraval. Nothing that even remotely like looks like vampires. Like everything is new and different. Like there's nothing. And then there's vampires in this book. Like, why? It's so weird. So random. This book made no sense to me. I thought most of the characters were super one-dimensional, made no sense, were really naive and silly. I Oh my God, I don't even know what to say about it other than it was just really weird, really bizarre. Definitely want to do a deep dive and talk about all the reasons why I don't like this book. But I know other people love it, so I don't want to be too mean. It was just really weird. It just made me feel really weird when I was reading it. So that's why it's farther down on my list. All right, now we're getting into the better books that I read in February, starting with number 4, Blue Lily, Lily Blue. This is the third book in the Raven cycle, the Raven Boys series of books. And again, I loved the Raven Boys. I loved the Dream Thieves. And guess what? I loved Blue Lily, Lily Blue. Love this book. It's great. It's a great third book in this series. All my favorite characters are back. There's even new characters in this book that in the beginning I was like, why are they there? But by the end, I was like, wow, I love that character. That character is great. There's so much good stuff about this book. We finally get answers to questions that have been set up since book 1. We're starting to find things out. This book makes me really excited for The Raven King, which is the last book in this series. I had a great time at this one. The only reason why it's a little bit farther down, like it's not higher up, is just because some of the other ones I've read are a bit more new and exciting. Like this is the third book in a series now, so hopefully you understand what I mean by that. But I'm gonna move on to my third pick for February, which is another third book in a trilogy, and this one is going to be Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. First of all, I know it's hard to see in this glare, but hopefully you can appreciate how beautiful this cover is. So pretty. I buddy read this book with Kelly over at Kelly Reads a Lot, and it was really fun to be able to talk about the book with someone who's a big fan of this world. At this point, Cassandra Clare has written a ton of books, so I feel like you probably already know if you're a Cassandra Clare fan or not. I am. I love her books. I love the characters. I love the plots. I love this world. I just really love it. So not surprised that I loved Chain of Thorns. Did it have everything that I wanted? No, it didn't. There's a couple things that I wanted to happen that did not, but overall, loved it. Again, it was really hard competition for the top 3 books this month, but because there was one thing I wanted to happen that didn't, that's why this book is only number 3, but don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved it. That brings me to my second favorite book of February, and I really had to think hard about this one. And I hope no one takes this the wrong way, but I really had to take a step back and think about this book and ask myself, do I love this book so much because it's really, really good? Or do I love this book so much because I know the author and I love the author, personally? So I took a step back and I really tried to assess it and how this book actually made me feel when I read it. And what I feel confidently I can say is that I Bleed Starseeds was my second favorite book of February. I did do a whole review about this book last week, so if you haven't watched it, go watch it. And when you watch that video, hopefully you will understand why I enjoyed this book so much. I'm not a big poetry reader. And yes, I probably do have a little bit of bias because I feel like I know Nymheria and I really, really like and care about Nymheria. But even beside that, though, some of her poems really affected me in a way that I was not expecting. Again, go watch the video I did. I go into it in a lot more detail. I really think her poems can be enjoyed by anyone, even if you don't know Nymheria. I really do believe that. So that's why I put I Bleed Starseeds at number 2. As someone who does not identify as a poetry reader, I can confidently say that this is my favorite book of poetry that I've read in recent years. It is. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So it's not just because I like Nymheria, even though that is also true. I also believe that this is a great book of poetry. And finally, that brings me to my number one favorite book of February, and that is going to be The Winter of the Witch by Katherine Arden. This is another third and final book in a trilogy, the Winter Night trilogy. Now, I first read The Bear and the Nightingale like almost a year ago. Like, it's been a while since I started this series. And then I read The Girl in the Tower, I don't know, near the end of last year. So I haven't consistently been reading these books like one a month for every month. It's taken me a while to get through this series. But boy, am I glad I did. I think, hands down, Winter of the Witch is my favorite book of the series. It is the one that I got the most out of. It is the one that made me the most emotional. I was almost in tears at the end of this book. It made me happy, like I wanted to cheer at points. It made me want to yell at points, like, why? Why are you doing that? Why are you like that? It's a great book. It's a great book. I mean, yeah, I can't remember the last time a fantasy story like actually made me like emotional. And I didn't like physically cry, but I could feel like I could feel my breath hitching. I could feel my face starting to get warm. I could feel my eyes starting to water. Like I was really, really moved by the end of this book. Not just once, but like more than once. And if you've read this book, you probably know why. Let's just say it has something to do with a magical horse. That was one of them. But I will definitely be talking much more about this book, and I think much more about this series overall, because if you like fantasy and you have not read the Winter Night trilogy, what are you doing? Go read it. I'm going to make a video and tell you why you should, but until then, go check this one out because it is really, really phenomenal. Okay, so those are all the books I finished in February, and believe it or not, there is still one book that I started in February that I did not finish, and that is The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. This was an Owl Crate book box. I started it in the beginning of February, and as of the filming of this video, which is now almost the middle of March, it's still not complete. Like, I should finish this week. There's only a couple chapters left, but it just got to the point where, like, I couldn't finish it before I left for my vacation. And since I've been back from vacation, I got back on Saturday, and it's now, Tuesday? I've really just been trying to, like, ease my way back into things, not just be like, oh, I gotta do this, this, and this. I'm really trying to, like, just take it easy. I'm trying to keep the Costa Rican spirit alive. So I have not rushed to finish the Gilded Ones. This will go on to my March TBR with the rest of the books that I will talk about now. Okay, let's start out with my recommendation for March. This recommendation came to me from Nika Cole over on Instagram. I'll link her handle below, but she recommended Legendborn to me, which I know is a super popular YA fantasy inspired, I believe, by the Legend of King Arthur and the Round Table. Again, I'm only a couple chapters into this because I just started it, but it seems really good so far, so hopefully this meets my high expectations. Next up, I'm continuing my Stephen King journey with a book I am super excited about, and that is The Green Mile, because I've seen the movie like 100 times. Absolutely love it. I have never read the book. I did actually start this one before I went on vacation, so I'm at least like a little bit into this one, but I have full intents of like flying through this one because, again, I love the movie, so I'm just hopeful that the book is even better because they usually are. Next up, I have my adult fantasy, and for March, I picked Seize the Night by Sherrilyn Kennyon. Some of you may remember that last year when I went on vacation, I said I always take a like super corny, steamy romance book, and that's what I did. So this book I'm actually almost finished with because I've been reading it when I was in Costa Rica. But yes, it's about a woman who hunts vampires and a guy that basically is a vampire. There's a whole world here of gods and like supernatural stuff, and they all bang each other, and it's pretty funny. Or at least I think it's funny. So yeah, there's only been like a couple really steamy scenes, which is kind of disappointing because the whole point of reading a book like this is it's for the steam. There's actually been minimal steam and much more plot, way more plot than I was expecting in this type of book. So I don't know what's going to happen in the last few chapters, but hopefully there's at least just one more steamy scene in there just to, you know, wrap everything up, but we'll see. For my random pick of the month, I have no idea what made me pick this, but I am reading Britt-Marie Was Here by Fredrick Backman. So some of you may remember that I read A Man Called Ove, not last year, but the year before. It was one of my favorite books of the year. I absolutely loved that book. Ever since I read it, I've been wanting to read other Fredrick Backman books. I happened to find this one at a bargain book sale, like, I don't know, a year ago. It's just been sitting there, so I thought, hey, it's not that long of a book, so hopefully I can actually get through it in March. Next up, I have my YA fantasy of the month, and that's going to be Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. Yes, I was just as surprised as you by how much I liked Throne of Glass, and I figured, hey, this would be a great book to read, and also because I found this book secondhand, it'd be a great book to bring to Costa Rica with me, which I did, which is why I'm a decent chunk of the way through this one. And yes, Jeremy, I did see your comment. I could have brought any book to Costa Rica. I did bring Sarah J. Maas because I figured if this book falls in the pool, I won't care as much. That was my reasoning. But I am liking this book so far. I am liking it, so what are you gonna do? And finally, that brings me to my quote-unquote middle grade book, which I know this isn't quite middle grade, but I'm putting it in that category, The Raven King, the fourth and final book of the Raven cycle. Super excited to dive into this one because I really want to see how this series wraps up. It's been so good so far. I have very high expectations that this book will be good as well, and I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. Because I'm still reading the Gilded ones, I don't have another book box book picked out. I do have one in mind that I might start if I finish the Gilded ones. However, again, I already have plenty of books on my plate. I also don't want to put too much pressure on myself to finish all these books before the end of March, because if I try to do that, I feel like it's not going to happen because we're already halfway through the month. So in order to not put pressure on myself, I don't think I'm going to add any more books to the pile. There's always April. There's always going to be time to read in the future. That is everything for my February wrap-up and my March TBR. I don't know if anyone can hear that noise in the background, but the plow is here, plowing the driveway. Hopefully that doesn't sound too loud on this video, but what are you gonna do? If you made it all the way to the end of this video, you are rewarded with a Rasco. Hi, Rasco. Rasco, who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Rasco has been very, very, very excited this week. I'm not going to tell you why right here because it's going to be a surprise in another video that I do very soon. But let's just say something very exciting happened for Rasco and our whole house this week, and I can't wait to tell you more about it soon. If you saw my stories on Instagram, you'll know what I'm talking about, but if you haven't, you are in for a surprise. But until then, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel for more bookish stuff coming your way soon. All right, everyone, happy reading.